Пишет, вы в эфире. Вы в эфире. Так, что у нас тут? Поехали. Да даже, я думаю, закрепчик кинем. Так. Смотрим. Вроде не должно лагать. Напишите, кто подключился, что по звуку. Хорошо ли слышно? Все, норм. Не, ребят, вы пишите лучше на ютубе. Ну, можно, конечно, и в телеге писать. Но в телеге я, наверное, буду меньше чекать. Звук отличный. Все, заебись. Пушка. Так. Ну что, ждем еще 2 минуты и стартуем, в принципе. И нам покажут первых 10 игроков с новыми ценами от каждого клуба. Вообще, на самом деле, затея странная, то, что они решили всего лишь 10-20 анонсировать. Возможно, все ждали чего-то большего, какие-то апдейты масштабные. Но, видимо, будут хайпить до последнего и растягивать вплоть до запуска. Осталось буквально 1,5 минуты. На самом деле, я думал, что будет больше. Всего лишь 2000 ждут. Думаю, порядка хотя бы 15, 20, 30 тысяч будет на стриме, но, видимо, всем лень. И, скорее всего, все будут чекать тот же Твиттер или Скаут. Так. Буквально минуту до старта. Какие вообще мысли по поводу Холланда? Сделать ему 14 миллионов или нет? Напишите в чатик цену предполагаемую. Снова пошла Инди смотреть. Ну, блин, когда-нибудь мы и до Инди дорастем. О, нас уже 20 человек смотрит. Неплохо, неплохо. Может быть, даже до соточки дотянем, но это вряд ли. Здорово. Да, всем привет. 14 читается, я тоже так думаю. Ну, скорее всего, 14 не будет. Потому что он стоил 11,5. Ага, ребята из FPL тоже задерживаются. А нет, еще 30 секунд. У всем 13, думаю. 13,5. Ну да, 13,5, мне кажется. Идеальная цена. 3000 зрителей на официальном стриме. Ждем пользователя. Ну чё там они? Не хотят, не умеют вовремя начинать. У нас немного меньше, чем на официальном стриме. 14 Холланд до 13,5 Салаху. Погнали. Ну блин, Салаху слишком много. Он же хуже выступил. И вряд ли он будет еще лучше выступать. Все-таки возраст. Все дела. Да не, 15 не сделают. Тогда пусть делают 20 вообще. Читал тут тред, то что не сделают очень много, потому что, скажем так, большинство игроков играют по фану, и им хотелось бы набрать всех сильных, всех красивых и забивных людей себе в команду, поэтому что-то там придумывать и искать пики очень дешевые, там, в том же Лутоне или Шеффилде, им не особо хочется. Опа, что-то пошло. Наконец-то.
If Bruno's dropping. What about penalties as well? Because that's something that Bruno Fernandes does have. Scored 2 from 2 last season, of course. Yeah, and that is a real good route to points.
Так, ну я так понимаю, это уже ревью или что? Бать, Эдегард 8,5. Ну блин, ну это дорого, это дорого.
That's something that you don't get necessarily when you go for some of the other more premium players because they don't have that responsibility for their club. So I think actually Bruno will become one of those players now that a lot of FPL managers will go, oh, I'm quite interested at 8.5 million, whereas if it was 10...
Ну, если выбирать между Фернандешем и Эдегором, логично, наверное, выбрать даже Фернандеша на определенный отрезок. Это все будет, конечно, зависеть от цены Сака. Сколько должен быть стоить Холланд, чтобы ты не взял его в команду? Ну, я думаю, от 16. От 16 миллионов. Так, 9, 9,5. Ну, я думаю, да, он будет дороже, чем Эдегор стоить. Ну, Эдегор, конечно, максимально завысили, я думаю. И за его оверперформающий сезон, мне кажется, пикрейт у него будет не такой высокий.
Because the clock does not stop. These are two FPL favourites from last season. Mitoma 6.5 and Watkins of Aston Villa at 8 million. Of course, Mitoma a midfielder.
Ого, Митома 6,5, ёпт. Ну, я, кстати, думал, что ему будет больше, но за 6,5 еще пикабельно, скажу так. Да, Митома на туре норм. Воткинс, ну, тоже нормально.
Consistently returning. So 1.5 million up from him. Is that still quite cheap? I think it is. I'm looking at that thinking, I still think that there's going to be a nice way to get him in my team. And I think across that Brighton squad, they had such a great campaign. And what we saw under De Zerbi was
ну, странно, что не повысили так много Митома. Видимо, то, что вторая половина сезона у него была не самая яркая. Да и на даблах он провалился, скажем, прямо.
Somewhere in that Brighton team without McAllister being there. So I think he could be a really nice option. And he still feels cheap to me. Like I was thinking...
Гарри Поттер. Я думаю, что будет ротация. Там еще парочку, наверное, вингеров закупит. Нужен какой-то дешевый нап. Все-таки Уоткинс за 8 неплохо, но нужен еще кто-то дешевле и сильный. Завалит игру.
But I do think with Aston Villa playing in Europe, as you say, you've got that kind of, can he play week in, week out, twice a week through the majority of the season? And that's always something to consider. But at 8 million, he probably is going to fit into that second strike. I was going to say, it's quite an awkward kind of price bracket, isn't it? Because he doesn't go into the budget forwards, but he's not a premium, is he? No, I don't think you can class him as a premium because I'm expecting we might see something a bit premium later on. But yeah, I don't think the 8 can count as a premium. So you're going to have to find him in that second bracket. And maybe if you want to have Haaland and Kane up there, is he a bit too expensive to be your third striker? Possibly. That's going to be a struggle, I think, at 8 million because I would expect some of the newly promoted forwards to maybe come in that cheaper bracket. Very quickly, any other Villa players on your radar? I think there's always a few, aren't there, that kind of have to come up there. Maybe the defenders, actually, that I might start looking at a little bit more. I quite like the idea of...
Ну, все понятно с ним. Давайте дальше.
A few other options at Aston Villa, but now we are on to our next pairing, and these are two players from newly promoted clubs. So Sam, we're hoping you're going to enlighten us a little bit.
Почему две полные бабы вещают? Ну, это уже не ко мне вопросы. Ого! Новички премьер-лиги, NDI, лучший бомбардир Шеффилда прошлого сезона. Ну, я ждал, на самом деле, что его сделать полузащитником, потому что фэнтези Шипа он был полузащем, но, видимо, достаточно волны смотрится. Моррис тоже был неплох. Честно говоря, не помню его статистику, но он был в порядке.
across the championship last time around. So has that real goal threat. And I think that will make him probably the standout player at Luton. You might get a cheap defender in there who plays every week and becomes an option. But at 5.5, that feels like a bit of a no-brainer to me.
What about Iliman and Zai then? Because 14 goals and 10 assists, one of only two championship players to get double figures for goals and assists last season, also at 5.5.
Yeah, I mean, he averaged less goals last time around, so he was averaging a goal every 200.
Да, это не ок. Почему они бегали? Во что они?
So not going to be huge returns, but then as a third forward at 5.5, you don't necessarily need to play them every week, so they don't necessarily need to be returning. You can just play them in those good fixtures that they have. He also had 24 goal involvements, which was more than double any other Sheffield United player, with the exception of Ollie McBurney, who got 15. So he's probably the pick at Sheffield United, maybe McBurney, but I think he's the pick there, but I prefer the Luton man of the two of them.
Are you especially interested in this category and in these players because of what we're maybe expecting with some of our other premium strikers?
For sure. Yeah, because
Ну, если они заиграют, то вполне себе адекватная цена. Особенно за Индией.
Two premium forwards, then you've got to find a way to make the budget work. And that feels really nice. And I do think the Luton's fixtures to start the season are fantastic.
Интересно, что там дальше.
Games in those opening weeks, where I would expect that they'll get some attacking returns. So having Morris in there at 5.5 million, lovely. Can see him being in my first draft.
I think we've already got the first player in Sam's team. Very quickly, the clock is coming on now. Any other players that you've scouted this summer at either of these two clubs?
No, I think it's going to be a watch and wait. I'm going to be looking at the defence, particularly for Luton, because if there's a 4.5 in there, then I think I might look to double up on Luton for the early part of the season, because the fixtures are great, and then you can move them around when you get to that first wild card.
And we also get the feeling we might need the money in our bank for other players. Let's take a look at a couple of other new faces coming into the Premier League.
Ого. Кливерт полузащитник, но это читалось. А Нкунку сделали нападающим, но это, в принципе, тоже читалось. Нкунку у всех. 7,5. Хорошая цена. Ну, Кливерт, я думаю, будет флопом, и вряд ли кто-то вообще пикнет.
We know that the new manager likes to move the ball quickly, get it out wide. That could really bode well for Kluivert. And I think at that price, he's that sort of kind of just a little bit more expensive than the likes of Andreas
Думаю, value
last time around. So you're going to be
Кунку поднялось бы значительно выше, если бы его сделали полузащитником, но что есть, то есть. Потому что, скорее всего, он будет играть либо на фланге, либо под нападающим как-то, не знаю. Чисто центральным, маловероятно.
If he can find a home at Bournemouth and kind of really embed himself in that team, get regular starts, then I think he could be a really great option. And he's cheap, so he's going to fit that kind of slightly budget-enabling price point that we look for.
Okay, let's move on to Nkunku then, because Chelsea were a source of frustration for us FPL managers last season, particularly in front of goal. Could he be the man to provide them and us with goals?
Could be, definitely, yeah. 16 goals in the Bundesliga last time around. He was actually fantastic in Bundesliga fantasy. He was one of those players that you could kind of rely on to bring up points. So I think he could be a nice option. And one thing...
Новички непикабельные, став не усилится. Дома игрок ротации. Откинь Бруно, берем Кунку. Слушай, но у Челси там по различным предиктам лучший календарь в начале сезона, поэтому, я думаю, будут искать value оттуда. Так что я бы даже запредиктил процентов 20, наверное, винершипа у Кунку. Если он не сломается на пресезонке, будет там хорошо выглядеть.
Just be the player that if you want to save a little bit of money and not necessarily have Ollie Watkins in there. 0.5 is quite important in this early part.
Так, раз, два, три, 4, да? 8 у нас игроков. Еще 12, собственно. Бимо сделали все-таки полузащитником. Блин, это очень крутой пик в отсутствии Тони. Но я думаю, что его закинуть, взять его третьего нападающим, там, Кейн не уйдет. Кейн, Холланд и Бимо. Но Бимо это вообще value просто нереальнейший.
repetitively for him. No Tony.
Очень крутой пик, если Брайтон, конечно, не будет говно катать. Ну, Эза тоже цену ему не загнули, играбельную. Бимо must-have, да, согласен, Бимо норм. Как у тебя плюс? Ну, кайф. Какой статик Ливер ключевой игрок Борнмута? Скорее всего, просто решили хайпануть им.
Less game time there for him, which might actually benefit us as FPL managers. But I'm pleased to see the positional change.
Не, Бимо полузащитник это вообще имба.
Я считаю.
Do you think potentially he could be on penalties as well?
I think he could be. Yeah, I mean, obviously depends on what Brentford do in the transfer window. But in the absence of Tony, he would have been guaranteed to take their penalties if on the pitch. I think we might see him taking them. And at the back end of last season, when Tony was suspended, he was fantastic for Brentford. So I do think that he is a nice option. It's just going to depend on
да, согласен, цена хорошая.
having that kind of 6.5 bracket. But maybe we need more of them because we've got a budget for some expensive guys.
Maybe we do. Let's move on to Eze then because it's a million.
Да, в эту же цену Бимо намного лучше, чем Митома, согласен.
5 million. Does this surprise you that he's gone up to this point as well?
No, those last 10 game weeks under Hodgson, he was fantastic, wasn't he? So in that time he got 6
Я, честно говоря, даже не помню, кто бил пенки вместо Тони. Можно посмотреть.
We're yet to see kind of what's happening at Palace this time around, but I do think he's a nice option. 6.5, I mean, 159 points last time around.
Посмотрим. Да, Бимо бил пенки. Действительно, даже в этом сезоне. Одну убил, одну забил. Неплохо.
Having seen 3 players now fall into that category, feels like it's going to be quite an important choice for FPL managers because you've got obviously the Brentford guys, the Brighton guys. We've now got Eze in there, and I do think if
Осталось, чтобы Бимо ворот подал.
that he could be the one that you look to.
Главное, чтобы он форму не растерял. Это самое главное. Ну что там? Еще 10 игроков. Ого. С голкиперов, да, зашли? Странно, что не Митровича показали у Фулхэм. Ну ладно. А у Эвертона я ждал Макнила. Ну все, ожидаемо. 4-5. Если Фулхэм будет так продолжать играть, Лен своими сейвами где-то в каком-то отрезке можно будет рассмотреть. Но Эвертон, конечно, сомнительно. Хотя, если Дайч научит их играть в обороне.
Actually, they were good last time around defensively. They had a good season, and we know from his pedigree in the past when he was at Arsenal that he's got the potential to be a fantastic shot stopper. And like you say, second for saves, only Raya had more. He made 144 saves, which equated to 37 additional save points. So when you're talking about goalkeepers, when the clean sheet goes, their route to points dramatically goes down. So if they're bringing in save points at that rate, that's almost one every game week of the season. That is a fantastic return for him. So I do think that he was a goalkeeper that last season.
Но смысл вратаря показывать. Пикфорд, да и Макнил, наверное, самые там. Может быть, еще кто-то из затычек. Самые ключевые. И, возможно, потому что его признали лучшим игроком сезона при Жорже Митровиче. Не, у Лена был очень хороший сезон и по цифрам, и по фэнтези очкам. Слишком нормальная цена, похоже, до Холланда все-таки 15. Холланда, видимо, оставили напоследок.
They're not so great. I mean, they've got 8.
What about a full season under Sean Dyche, starting the season as manager there?
Yeah, and I think that might improve things because we know that he can be a defensively really secure manager, and I guess it depends what happens in the transfer.
Может, его и не покажут. Может быть, отдельно его покажут.
So if they can improve their defensive qualities, and obviously Pickford going in to an England campaign next summer, he'll want to have a good season this time around. He was high for save points like Leno was. So if you are trying to budget and you want to go for the cheap rotating pairs, looking at Leno and Pickford actually feels like it might be the way.
Надо
What's your strategy?
15.
Premium
well, it depends on how they price the premiums, I think. But I am tempted by these two. If they're both in at 4.5.
Будет ли смешно, если у Сити покажут Ортегу или Аки? Да нет, я думаю, тут троллить не будет никто. Но было бы хорошо. Хайпить за последнего. Трипье. Ну, Трипье ожидаемо 6,5, как его все предикстили. Пакета 6,0. Ну, если Вест Хэм будет хорошо играть, то вполне себе хороший пик.
He deserves it. Yeah. I mean, he deserves it. He started the season last year at 5. I was expecting a jump.
That big a jump?
I was hoping it wasn't going to be that big a jump. I was hoping for 6. I think 6.5 is going to be...
Ну, лучше бы Боуэна показали, конечно, чем Пакета. Кто нам ваш?
How many of them you own. It's going to go back to a conversation about big at the back again, isn't it? Do we want to invest heavily in the back? Can we invest heavily in the back, depending upon how much we wrote? I mean, he finished last season at 6 million, so that's a jump even again on that. But 198 points. He was the highest scoring defender in the game last time around.
It's the bonus points as well.
The bonus points were ridiculous, yeah. And even when you look at him in comparison to the whole game, he was the 8th highest scoring player in the game. So outscoring a lot of those premium, players out front that we, in the attacking positions that we would have wanted.
Будет ли опять в секторе Пье? Там календарь в начале вообще не очень, так что я думаю, пропустит. Пропустит его как пик. Даже скажу, кто там в начале играет. Ньюкасл, Астон Вилла, Манчестер Сити, Ливерпуль, Брайтон, Брентфорд. В общем, сомнительно. Старевший на год, подорожавший Трипье. Я бы другие варианты рассматривал. Да, согласен. Вест Хэм без Райса будет ли хорошо играть? Если новый тренер наймут.
Have taken a rise. I think potentially it would have been wrong for him to take a drop. West Ham didn't have the best season last time around. He only got 98 points over the course of last season, which was
Трипье в этом сезоне действительно, если будут все скипать.
9 goal involvements from 27 starts. It's not the best of
Could this be his season?
I think it could be. Yeah, I mean he averaged 3 points.
В всяком случае, поначалу. Хочется уже посмотреть, что там у Ливерпуля и
And at 6, he sits below those kind of Matoma
у
players
Сити.
who are at 6.5. So if you're trying to save budget, then maybe he is a great pick.
Maybe he is. Let's move on.
Ну что там, ну что там, ну что там?
It's our first Spurs player, or our Spurs player that we're going to look at. Who's it going to be?
Ого!
9 million.
Ну блин, ну вы что, зачем так цену задирать? Там же столько вратарей и делать его за 5. Понятно. Сон за 9. Ну, на первый взгляд, value. Новый тренер. Сон там сделал операцию, избавился от грыжи, должен быть в хорошем настроении. Атакующий тренер. Да, Сон может быть очень крутым пиком в начале сезона. Ждем тапу удачно. Нет, давайте такого не будем. Ну, это был, конечно, жесткий троллинг, если он так перевели бы в полузащиту.
That is a viable alternative to having Kane.
What do you think Maddison's price will be then, having seen that?
8?
Ну да, Сон засрал максимально свой сезон прошлый. Но опять же, нельзя же смотреть только на прошлый сезон. Не факт, что будет в следующем то же самое, что было в прошлом. Не Кейн, да. Да, Кейна... Возможно, кстати, у Сити Холланда тоже не будет.
Kane goes up from 11.5, which he was last year. You say 12, 12.5, but you could have Son and Maddison for maybe 17, then maybe that's a better option than having 12 as Kane.
Keep your eyes peeled for the price reveal of James Maddison coming in the next few days. What about Jose Sarr then? 5 million, is that quite a lot?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, that was what he was last time around. 148 points, obviously made more saves than anybody else last time around. Had 11 clean sheets, 2 penalty saves, and 26 save points last time around. So
возможно, когда цена на Жозеса немножечко упадет, там до 4.8, 4.7 и каком-то уже хорошем игровом отрезке, можно будет его подобрать. Как же они тянут до последнего с этим Холландом, по-любому не покажут.
Perfectly timed. We're moving on to our next pairing now. And
Кейна ждем в оценке игроков фэнтези Бундеслиги.
we have got Manuel Benson and Morgan Gibbs-White. Let's start with
Да пока непонятно, что там с этим Кейном. Что они особо торопятся выходить. Не, Кейн просто в МЮ будет.
145 points for Gibbs-White last time around. 12 assists, only 3 players in the game got more than he did.
Гибс-White. Ну, Гибс-White подорожал. Ну, какой Бенсон? Ну, вы серьезно? Ну, почему Бенсон? Ладно. Ну, в общем, не для фэнтези, скорее всего, пик. Могли бы хотя бы Теллу анонсировать, то было бы интересней. Я думаю, у него наверняка такая же цена, 5,5. Надеюсь, Брэндона Джонсона перевели тоже в полузащиту, хотя сомневаюсь. Гибс-White вообще в шоке. Что он здесь присутствует? Так.
So yeah, I quite like that price actually. I don't think that's too bad.
What about Benson then? And how do you feel about Burnley overall? Because they had a brilliant season last season in the Championship. Everyone very excited to see how they and Vincent Kompany do this season. Will they be attractive from an FPL point of view, do you think?
I think they should be. I mean, with Burnley, we naturally in the past have gravitated towards the defenders under Dyche because that was where their skill set was.
Да, есть такое, то, что он в Сауте, но они хотят его выкупить обратно.
He made 14 starts and came off the bench 9 times. Now that's 19 times, sorry. So that is something we need to consider as FPL managers. Is he regularly going to get enough starts to warrant the 5.5? I don't know. We're going to have to see what happens in pre-season. But if he does, then he could be a nice option because Burnley scored 87 goals last time around, which was more than any other Championship club. So they've gone from being that kind of defensive one that we would naturally as FPL managers look to being a club that we should maybe look more at their attacking assets.
Yeah, we'll see how Burnley get on in the opening weeks. Potentially, if they have a good season like last season, maybe not quite the same levels, then it could be very interesting. Now,
ну что, последние двое остались.
You probably know what's coming next, don't you? Two of the biggest players in FPL and probably one of the most talked about price reveals that we've all been discussing. Mo Salah and Erling Haaland.
Так,
Let's take a look.
Полон, блять. 14 сюда.
For Erling Haaland.
Ого.
Let's start with Haaland. We'll talk about Salah's drop in just a moment. But Haaland, we know what his season was like last season. We know how important he was to FPL managers. Is that too expensive, or do we still have to have him at 14 million?
I don't think it is too expensive. I think I was hoping for 13 and a half, but thought it might be 14 because the most expensive players in FPL in the past have been Thierry Henry, Ronaldo and Van Persie, all of them coming in at 14 million. He had just as good a season last year.
Ну, Салах недорого. Мне нравится цена. Могли бы 14,5 сделать. Ну, блин, все равно будет полон у всех, в любом случае. Зато к нему хорошо, может быть, зайдет Салах. Так как цену понизили на него.
I think you're going to have to find 14 million. You basically have to look at it that, you know, the rest of your budget is 86. So you've got 86 to buy 14 players.
At one point last season, he was in over 9.5 million teams. Do you expect the same this year?
Oh, that's a good question because I'm not sure that it can be that high because, I mean, we haven't seen Kane's price today. We haven't seen Trent's price today. So depending upon how they come in, there's going to be a lot of
То, что Салаху понизили цену, очень приятно.
You might want to invest in. So there might be a few managers that brave it and go, oh, instead I'm going to go for somebody like...
You'd have to be very brave.
Yeah, you would, but they might be some managers that do it. I won't be one of them.
He'll be straight in your team, yeah? So it's going to be, here's Erling Haaland, I'm going to build the rest of my team around him, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
What about Mo Salah then? Because you were actually almost more surprised seeing Salah's price than seeing Erling Haaland, a drop for him.
Так, теперь самое интересное, будет ли что-то еще? Какие-то апдейты или это... Все.
Was fearing. Yeah, so he had 239 points last season. It was not his best campaign.
Ну, дорого Холланд, согласен.
He didn't have a
Но
bad
я
season,
думаю,
but
все равно будут
at the
пикать.
end of the season, he was back
Там не
to the
80%,
Salah that we know
конечно,
and
но
love. And I think part of what
50.
was wrong with Salah last time around was more about Liverpool getting used to new players and the way that they were playing was slightly different. So I quite like the fact that he's 12. I think he will be in more teams. I barely owned Salah last time around because I had Haaland and Kane. But the 12.5 is attractive. That makes him kind of sit in my mind. Because I'd been thinking coming into this, he's going to be 13 and I'm going to have to find a different way to invest in Liverpool because...
That 5 million makes that much difference.
I think it does, because at the beginning of the season, 0.5 is huge because you want to be able to fit in as many of these premium assets as you can and give yourself as much potential as possible to move across as players start the season well, fixtures change.
Как раз 80%. Ну,
So I think for me, that 0.5 is huge because suddenly
я даже сейчас запущу голосовалку.
having a Paqueta or having a Matoma. So, and that is a big jump and a big difference potentially overall. And, you know, it could mean that you'd be able to get a slightly more premium second striker.
He is also still a midfielder as well, which is always a little bit of a relief, isn't it?
Yeah, pleased to see that because, of course, that is something that I do like, is to have a premium midfielder because then you get the opportunity for the additional clean sheet points, the more points for goals and the bonus points and stuff like that. So I think that's really important. Plus, with him, you have the penalty responsibility, which I don't think he's going to lose even with McAllister going there. I can't see that. I think that'll still be on Salah. So 12.5 for Salah feels actually like weirdly, it feels a bit of a bargain.
So are you going to try and get both of these in your team?
Yeah. I don't know how I'm going to get
Good luck
Kane
with
in
that.
there as well. It's going to be a
Good luck
struggle.
with that. Well, let's remind you of all 20 players, and hopefully Sam will remind you of some.
Хочется посмотреть, конечно, что там Кейн нарисовали. И Тренту. Трент наверняка 7. Как я понимаю.
For Watkins, then the couple of newly promoted players, 5.5 million for Morris and 5.5.
Да, согласен, то, что, возможно, кого-то занизит, и поэтому 40 влезет.
And Chelsea, Cliver and Nkuku, 5 for Cliver, 7.5 million for Nkuku. Then two midfielders who had brilliant seasons, both priced at 6.5 million for the upcoming campaign, Mbuemo and Eze. Then we did a couple of goalkeepers, both priced at 4.5 million, Leno and Pickford. Then we did a couple of players who will be playing in Europe this season, Paquetá and Trippier. Paquetá at 6 and Trippier with a rise to 6.5. Sarr priced at 5.
Ну как же они все перечисляют заново?
9 million. Then a couple of other midfielders of interest. Gibbs White is 6. Benson of Burnley at 5.5. Then we ended with the big ones. You need to find some budget here, guys, because Erling Haaland is priced at 14 million of your FPL pounds, while Mohamed Salah is 12.5 million. Well, that is all for us today. Did you enjoy that, Sam? Getting you excited?
Can't wait now.
Can't wait. Do keep an eye on PremierLeague.com over the next few days for plenty more price reveals in the build-up to the launch of FPL. Gosh, we've missed it, haven't we? Thank you so much for watching, and we hope you enjoy planning for the new season as much as we will. See you very soon. Bye-bye.
Ну что, это все? Все? Да, ну, ничего нового дополнительного не сказали. Ладно, ребятки, перемещаемся тогда в текстовое обсуждение. Спасибо всем, кто пришел. Я получил 14 на Холланда, я очень доволен. Все, всем спасибо, всем пока.